Hey everyone, welcome back to When Creatives Thrive, a BOPA podcast. I'm Stuart Rustin, the multimedia manager at BOPA, and this episode we're joined by Deyane Moses. Deyane is an Army veteran, multidisciplinary creative, educator, and curator living in Baltimore. She's also the current director of partnerships and programs for Afro Charities Inc. Deyane discusses her passion for Black history, archives, and her mission to honor the legacy of Tom Miller. Miller, who is a MICA grad like Deyane, created colorful, whimsical, and deeply symbolic screenprints and murals, as well as sculptures from discarded furniture. Miller was the first African-American artist from Baltimore to have a solo exhibition at the Baltimore Museum of Art. The 5th annual Tom Miller Week, which took place February 15 through 22, 2025, featured an exhibition curated by Deyane through her nonprofit Blackives, LLC. Titled Out of the Woodwork, Deyane's retrospective is a poignant tribute to Miller's life and creative genius and serves as a call to preserve his enduring impact on Baltimore's cultural landscape. I'm super excited to share that this episode, Deyane is joined in conversation with BOPA's communication manager, Barbara Hauk. Barbara's a multi-hyphenate theater artist and was elected the first artistic director of the Fells Point Corner Theater, which she currently serves on the board as a member at large.
All right, well, we are here today with Deyane Moses, who is an artist, an activist, and an archivist here in Baltimore. And she is the founder of Blackives, which is an organization that seeks to preserve and share African-American stories. And the name is a portmanteau of Black and archives. And thank you so much for being here, Deyane.
Thank you for having me. I'm really, really excited to talk with you today.
Yay, I always love talking to you. So how did you get into archival work?
Wow, it's really kind of serendipitous, actually. I came to MICA as a student and got out of there. I got out of the military as a broadcast journalist, and I came to MICA. And looking into its history is really how I found the archives. And the first archive I found was the Afro Archives. And it's funny because now I work here. So that's really how I got into the archives, was looking into the history of MICA from a Black lens, because I really wanted to kind of find out why a predominantly white college was in a predominantly Black city and how it was working and how that happened, how it came to be, and how it's still like that today. And so that project and looking into the archives helped me find Blackives, helped me create the Maryland Institute Black Archives, all of that. So it all just kind of like fed and built upon each other.
That's awesome. So why is archiving Baltimore's history, especially Black history, so important?
It's so important to me because, one, I'm Black, but then two, also, growing up, I didn't know all of our history. I'm not from Baltimore, but I am from the DMV area, D.C., Maryland, Virginia. I know we don't consider Baltimore DMV because the metro doesn't reach all the way up there, but I did know a lot about Baltimore growing up. But when I was finding more about our Black history and it wasn't being taught in schools all the way outside of just the regular MLK and things like that, it was so much more deeper. And I was walking past all of these landmarks that were right next to me, and I had no idea that these things had happened. There weren't even any markers. So looking into the history made me realize that, hey, more people need to know about what's happening here, because a lot of people around me didn't know, and they were from Baltimore. And so that was like, okay, this is where I need to start, and this is what I want to do. And so it just was a passion and a fire that was lit within me, and it's never stopped since then.
That's awesome. The more that I learn about Baltimore, its history and Black history, the buildings take on new life.
Yeah.
Like it's just a whole new lens of looking at the city, which is awesome.
100%. And of course now, in this climate that we have right now where Black history, a lot of other people's histories are all being erased. We need to do as much as we can within each other, within our communities, to try to preserve that history. So that's one thing that I'm very, very passionate about, and that has to keep going on for generations to come, in my opinion.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree. So speaking of communities, why is community engagement important to that process of sharing content from your collection or from private collections or doing research into creating other collections?
The community is important because they are, we consider a first-hand account. First-person resource. Not everything was documented in papers or documented in books and in magazines, wherever you're getting your news from. Not all those things were documented. So the community still exists. They're still here. They probably were here from the beginning. So going to the community and finding out what exactly happened, getting those emotional responses and getting those emotional stories are important. Those things can be lost in translation. Sometimes they're just straight up erased because of who you are and what newspaper, what outlet was covering it. And so making sure you know how the community felt, what they lived and what they experience is vitally important. In the community, they want their stories told. Sometimes they don't have the resources or the connections to get that. So if I can be a resource, or my community or network can be a resource, that's my goal. And it's so important.
That's awesome. It's very valuable too. I mean, what did they say, that history is written by the winners, or the people who are able to write things down?
100%.
But oral history traditions are so critical to preserving a lot of the histories that were, like you said, not taught.
Yeah, not taught at all. But some things are, and then sometimes in communities we find, especially like indigenous communities and maybe even communities abroad especially, sometimes some histories are kept on purpose because they don't need or they don't want certain things to be out in the public. So that's why it's kind of a double-edged sword sometimes when you're thinking about doing community work. You want to make sure you're talking with the community, making sure like this is something that they also want to be a part of. Because sometimes they don't need your help. They don't want your help. They don't want you to do that. So always working with community to find out what their needs are, because you might come in as an outsider from a different perspective, but they have certain needs and goals first. And you should be trying to meet those and maybe even trying to align your goals together. And that'll also change your perspective when you talk to community.
Absolutely. It's a conversation.
100%.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you recently organized Tom Miller Week here in Baltimore. So who is Tom Miller?
Tom Miller is a Black man who was born in 1945 in Sandtown, Winchester in Baltimore, Maryland. He's an artist. He's always wanted to be an artist. And he's an amazing artist, one of my favorite artists. And I first found out about his work when I was a little kid driving through Baltimore. And I saw that mural on North Avenue and Hartford Road, however far a stream flows, it never forgets its source. And it's a big mural inside of this building of a Black man reading a book, and it has that inscription, however far a stream goes, and never forgets its source, in the background. And it also has these, on the book, and it also has all these different motifs and things in the background. And so that was the first time I ever saw Tom Miller's work. And it would be, 20-something years later, and when I would come back to Baltimore to go to school, that I would then again hear his name again. And so learning more about Tom Miller, knowing about what he did, what his artwork meant, the different symbols and meanings behind his work, and also his life, really touched me. And we also, of course, have a similar thread because we both went to MICA twice over. So Tom Miller was just an amazing artist, an amazing friend. And when I talked to the community here in Baltimore, his friends, his family, he left a legacy that really impacted people, and they're still missing him to this day. So I didn't know him personally, but hearing about his legacy and seeing his artwork, it just makes me so happy. But it also makes me sad because I wish he was still here. And I always wonder what would he be making now with today's current climate? What would his artwork be saying now? And maybe also how free could he have been compared to the time when he was making his artwork in the 80s and 90s as compared to now within the queer community, and how they're celebrated, how they're acknowledged, and how they have a space at times, but how they have space more now than they had before in the art world. So it's just, I miss Tom Miller, even though I didn't know him, but I think that he was so impactful in Baltimore, and a lot of people still have his artwork in their homes.
That's amazing. I drive past that mural, and there's one, I believe, right opposite at that same intersection. I drive past those every day, and I love when I get stopped at that light so that I can take a minute to look at them.
Yeah, it's a beautiful mural. There's also another one, down in Cherry Hill on their library that's also it's huge and very vibrant. And so, yeah, we always drive past those murals and think about him.
Yeah, it's amazing how well those murals have held up. And granted, they do require preservation and work to continue, being as beautiful and as vibrant as they are. But they really are just so bright. And there's a lot of similar themes throughout all of them. What are some of the themes in Tom Miller's work?
A lot of Tom Miller's themes, of course, feature Black people and Blackness, but they also feature our culture and Baltimore culture as well. So you can see depictions of the Inner Harbor, some of the landmarks, the Washington Monument landmarks. You can see crabs. You can see the Arabers coming down the street and calling out for fresh fruits and vegetables. You can see the people fellowshipping with each other. So Tom Miller is all about community and showing our culture and our heritage. So those are some of the things that you'll see, on the murals that are out there now. But if you have look at some of his other artwork that you might find online or in museums, you'll see again some of those same motifs. But then if you look a little bit deeper, you can also see a lot more things where he's talking about African American history and things that have happened to Black people. So for instance, it could be segregation. It could be something as vicious and as horrendous as feeding children to alligators back in the day. And so those are a lot of things that Tom Miller talked about. He used a lot of satire in his work to flip on the head some of the things that has happened in American history, not African American history. So for instance, those stereotypical images, I hate that word, African Americana art, because we did not create those things, where you see like Sambos and big Black women who are full figured and have like, the bandana, like the Aunt Jemima kind of looking things. He took those stereotypes and he threw them on his head because he thought that, taking a stereotype and making it bigger and larger than life and even poking fun on it could really change that narrative. And so he loved his full lips and his bright eyes. He thought there's nothing to be ashamed with that. So he often featured that in a lot of his works to be something to be proud of. And it's something to also to just remind us about like what is some undertones that are happening here in America.
That's so important. And sometimes, like you said, when you blow a stereotype up that much to poke fun at it, it takes some of the power away.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's awesome. Now, Tom Miller does have a BOPA connection.
Yeah.
He, I know, coordinated some exhibitions at Artscape in the 90s, including some interactive pieces of art. And he also was the first Black man to have a solo exhibition at the BMA. Is that right?
Yes, 100%. And also, thank you for sharing those photos because I had never seen the things from Artscape that he did. So those are beautiful to see when you all share those with me for the exhibition that happened earlier this year. But yes, he was the first Black man to have a solo exhibition at the BMA, February 18th, 1995. And so it was a culmination of all his work. And it was a fabulous exhibition with all his pieces, from his screens to his painted furniture, even some of his screen prints as well. But it was a beautiful exhibition. But it was also simultaneously, there was another exhibition happening at MAP as well, the Maryland Art Place as well. And so he had those two exhibitions simultaneously happening. And also at that time, you might know, Kurt Schmoke declared February 18th Tom Miller Day. And so that has been something that I've been just holding on to when thinking about reclaiming his legacy and letting his legacy be, more revived, let's just say, in the city of Baltimore.
Yeah, I honestly didn't know, I think, almost anything about Tom Miller other than seeing those murals. I didn't know anything about the artist until your exhibition and until Tom Miller Week this year, which, by the way, that was a beautiful exhibition.
Thank you.
It was really fascinating to see the story that you put together. So when you're putting together an exhibition like that, how do you decide what story to tell? Or does the story just kind of come to you?
For this exhibition, I had a lot of ideas about the way I could tell the story of Tom Miller. But just like you said, a lot of people have seen the murals but didn't really know him per se or know his story. So I thought for this round, I should definitely do it in a chronological sense, in a chronological order. And so, but I wanted to be a little bit more visual. And so the way I thought about that order was thinking, of course, his life, his childhood with his family. Tom Miller's father was an expert tailor. His mom was also a seamstress, but his dad did have a hobby for fixing things around the house. And so I told the story of him and his brothers and sisters growing up together. There was a video in there that talked about the way he grew up and the things that they did. And then it went on to talk about his schooling at the Carver Vocational Technical High School, which at Carver, as you all know, is almost like not a trade school, but they teach a lot of skills from hairdressing, carpentry, as well as commercial design. And that's what Tom Miller did when he was there. And so what he did while he was at Carver was learning all these different skills, and specifically painting. And then when he was at Carver, he happened to get a scholarship to MICA. And so that's what started his path into MICA. But he'd always seen artists, but never thought that it was a viable career. Like many of us, our parents didn't see a future in that. So they didn't foster that. That happened specifically with me. So as I said, there's so many links between, me and Tom Miller. But so he went to school at Carver, and then he got out and became a public art resource teacher in the city and in the county. He did that for 20 years. And then he taught children about art history, critical art theory, but also taught them painting. And his style at that time was a little bit different than we see of now. He did a lot of portraits, a lot of like figure painting, and they were like very exact almost to us. And they had a little whimsical sense to it, but they weren't very colorful at all. And then when he had an opportunity to go to MICA, thanks to Dr. Leslie King Hammond, for his graduate program, he got a scholarship for the Ford Foundation for Fellowships for Artists of Color, which was set up by Dr. Leslie and Fred Lazarus, who was the president at the time, to help artists who are of color enter into the master's degree program so that they can become full-fledged working full-time artists. The scholarship then pay for things, but it also helped them concentrate fully on their studies rather than having to worry about work. So Tom Miller graduated from there and developed that Afro Deco style where it was the bright colors, these whimsical themes, and then also these different motifs that he put into his work. And from then, after he graduated from there, is when he went on to become a full-fledged, full-time working artist when he joined different galleries and things like that. So his time, it seemed, was like not that long from, he had like maybe a good 10, 20 years, after graduation. But then, maybe 15 years after graduation. But he spent most of his life, he didn't become a full-fledged artist until he was like 40. So it's like it's never too late, to become an artist. It's never too late.
That's awesome. It was great to see throughout the exhibition in chronological order kind of how his style changed.
Yeah, and developed.
And there's this one painting that I can just picture of the pineapple.
Oh, yeah.
And it's so different from that Afro Deco style of his later work in the furniture paintings. And I remember just standing there staring at it for so long thinking, like, how do you know when something like that is done? Like, how do you know when that painting is finished? I could just continue just like adding little dots of color, forever.
I don't know. You never know. As an artist, some artists, they'll say a piece is done, they're done with it. Some artists, they come back and work on it again. Some artists come over and just totally wash over it. I know I was talking to Joyce Scott, and she told me she's done that before with several of her pieces. Joyce Scott, if you don't know, is an amazing artist from Baltimore. Icon, please look her up. But she was very close with Tom Miller, one of his best friends. But she's talked about that before, where she's worked on pieces, and it's done. It might be done for right now, but then another season comes, and you want to reuse it again, but it has a different life. So I think artists' works can evolve over time. Sometimes it starts here, but then it goes up and it changes over time. Tom Miller, I think he more built upon what he liked,
Yeah.
He started off with that pineapple and had that figurative drawing, but then he started finding ways to incorporate it in a different style into his work as well.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, the painting on the furniture was incredible because they're pieces, if I'm correct, that were meant to be used, not just looked at.
100%. Tom Miller thought that art should be beautiful, but also functional. Which, I mean, if I'm being honest, when you look at a lot of people's cultures who paint furniture, paint things that they have in their, whether it's like religious practices or just communal things, everything's painted and decorative, but it's not necessarily thought of to be an artwork. It's painting to be, it has meaning to it and different things like that. So if you're thinking about like, some different sculptures. I went over to the continent in Africa and went to Ghana, and I visited, and they were showing me some different stools and things like that had the Ndinkra symbols on it. I was like, oh, these are so beautiful. But then I was thinking, like, hold on, I saw something just like that at a museum a couple of years ago. And so it's like these pieces that Tom Miller made, he decorated them, but he also wanted them to be functional. So those dressers and things like that, he wanted you to use them. Some of the pieces that you saw in the show, they were kind of worn down, like they looked like they'd been outside because it was like a patio furniture set, and it was outside. They used it. They sat on it. They fellowshipped with each other with it. One of the other. My favorite one, Chesapeake, which is owned by Miss Gloria Askin. She has her clothes in there. She took her clothes out and let me use it for the exhibition. But yes, the pieces are supposed to be functional. They're supposed to improve your life and improve your space. He wants you to use them, not just look at them and think that they're beautiful.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that art should be threaded throughout our lives and
100%.
And be in the community. So it was great to see so many pieces that were clearly loved and used by people.
Yeah, sometimes like, when you go in some different spaces, it's so like sterile, you know what I mean? And you don't see the art fully incorporated into the building or into the space. So I love when I go into different spaces and I see the art is being fully fledged into and worked and weaved into the space. I think that makes it truly, truly special and stands out all the time.
I agree. So Tom Miller Day got declared in the 90s, and now it's Tom Miller Week. How do we get from a day to a week?
The community.
Yay!
For real. Like, it started off as a day during COVID. Tom Miller, because I started the Maryland Institute Black Archives, which looked at Black artists who attended MICA from its inception until the present. And that's how I found about Tom Miller. So I continued on in graduate school. And so during my graduate school, happened to be during COVID. And so that first year it was online. So it was just a day. And Kurt Smoke, who declared that day, he read the book, Can a Cold Scuttle Fly? And then it went on to be another day, but it was like 2 days because we did like a mural planting over at like Motor House. And then, just kind of like grew from there. It just got a little bit longer, because people wanted to participate and do more. So it's just grown and grown and grown. And like this year was like 2 months.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, because that's how long that exhibition was up. And we did programming all throughout that as well. And so it's just been amazing to see it grow so long. I mean, you never know. Maybe next year it'll be 6 months. Another exhibition that's up for a while, or at least his work is featured in an exhibition that's up for like 6 months. So it's just grown from the community support. And I'm just listening to the community and feeding off their energy and trying to keep it going, how they would like to see it go. Because it's not just mine anymore. Now I feel like it's Baltimore's. We got that recognition from Mayor Scott for Tom Miller Week. So it's officially the city of Baltimore's. And so whatever they want to do, I want to, foster that. Trying to get into schools as well, working with some schools as well. So that's the goal.
Yeah, I would imagine because he, was a teacher and worked with youth that somehow, integrating youth into like, I don't know, I'm just like spitballing here now, like an exhibition or another mural painting.
We've done that.
Yeah,
we did that. We did an exhibit. We worked with Carver students to paint artwork in his style, inspired by their own stories. And then we had an exhibition and an online auction at the University of Baltimore. So shout out to Carver. It was a very successful exhibition. The money and proceeds from that exhibition went straight to the students as a $500 scholarship for each of them, because they were a part of an artist group at Carver. And so that's something that we want to do again. People have asked, like, hey, how can my school get involved? And we also had, I want to also shout out Second Chance, because they donated the furniture. So it was just a great, great project. And so, yes, working in with schools, whether it's through carpentry, like at Carver, or maybe it could be just letting students know more about different African motifs. And maybe that style, that Afro Deco style, could help, in different art programs and things like that. But it can just build upon his legacy. And I definitely think that his book, Can a Cold Scuttle Fly, could be read to students at any point in time. When we read that book, Can a Cold Scuttle Fly, during the opening, it touched me. Like, I was in tears, because it sounded different when Keith Snipes read it. Keith Snipes is a voice actor, as an actor, but also he sings, and he's from Baltimore. But when he read that, I was like, what? I never heard it like that before. But Tom talked about him wanting to be an artist from a kid to the present. And so I definitely think that it could help you believe in yourself. If you know you're an artist, but no one else believes in you, you can keep going. You can find that strength like he did. And he made it. He became an artist.
Yeah, that's so awesome. Fun fact on Smaltimore, I was in a show with Keith Snipes several years ago at Chesapeake Shakespeare.
Oh, wow.
We were in a production of Anne of 1,000 Days.
Oh, wow.
Where I played the other Boleyn sister. So, yeah, and his voice, I agree, just like velvet. It's beautiful.
I was like, Keith, talk to me, please.
Yes.
I said, if I get some bad news, I want somebody to call Keith so he can deliver it to me, because it's not going to sound as bad when he says it.
Yeah. Oh, gosh, no, that was wonderful.
Yeah.
Are there any other artists who've kind of adopted that Afro Deco style, or is that pretty unique to Tom Miller?
I would say it's unique to Tom Miller, but I can see it in other artists too. There's an artist here in Baltimore, Gary Mullen.
Yeah.
Gary Mullen, his work, it's not as bright, but it reminds me of Tom's work. Sometimes the colors are maybe a little pastel sometimes from Gary's work, but he can still get pretty bright as well, depending on what you're looking at. Because, there's have you seen the mural that Gary has across from the conservatory? You might not even notice it.
I don't know if I know that one.
So across from the conservatory, when you're at that light, I can never pronounce that street. It's like Auditory, whatever. But it's a light
that
that's
one.
right there. There's a light. And if you look to your right, there's like a little, I don't know, a divider. And there is a mural, and you can see Gary's style. It's Gary. I was like, Gary, I know your mural. And so it also reminds me of Tom, because it's flat. It has depictions of Baltimore life. It has depictions of people. And it looks similar to Tom Miller's work. I also think about like Derek Adams.
Yeah.
His work reminds me of Tom Miller's. He's also from Baltimore. I don't know, he said he was a big fan of Tom Miller, so I don't know if Tom influenced his work, but it just reminds me of it. I'm thinking about some of the motifs as well. But yeah, Tom's work is pretty beautiful and fascinating. Also, I just love the way he embellishes things. Joyce's embellishment, not similar to Tom's, but Joyce's embellishments is fire. And so I think that's a kind of play that they have with the embellishments as well. They do really great work with the embellishments on things that they're doing. And so I just love Tom's work. But those are some artists I would say that's local that makes me think of Tom when I see it.
Yeah. Actually,
do you have one?
So when I started cataloging, the murals and kind of gathering all the information about, especially the more recent ones that have been painted, I started to recognize Gary's style. Like I could see a mural and then just peg it as like, oh, that's Gary. I know there's one on the Giant on 33rd.
From Gary?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's like a little like panel that's set into the brick. And it's row houses done in that, like you said, flat kind of style. And then Gary also did one. He did some of the original murals on the columns. And then in this most recent round of painting, he also reapplied and did some of the murals that are new. So, it's great to see that he is still an active working artist.
Yes.
And that style is really recognizable.
And also Gary did work with us with Carver when we did that with the kids. I don't even want to forget that. So shout out to Gary Mullen, amazing artist. But love Gary, does great work. And his style also reminds me of Tom's as well. But he's a great artist. Definitely check out his work if you haven't. And there was a person, Spoon Pipkin, that one that's I don't know if that he did that just in I haven't seen any of their other work. I think they did it as a commemoration to Ken Cole's Go to Fly and things like that. So that's one other painting that's over near the courthouse, right? Over on North Avenue. So on the other side where the Wendy's used to be and where that courthouse is. Kind of like in a weird spot though.
Yeah.
Like by a parking lot place.
I think
it's hard
I
to
know
describe where it's
4
at.
panels.
Yes. It's hard to describe where it's at, but it's close to those other murals as well, like just right across the street.
Yeah. And actually, if I recall, somewhere in the 2000s, or maybe it was even the 90s. I'd have to go back and look at the dates on the photos. But the However Far a Stream Flows mural did get refurbished once, and it was Spoon Popkin who did it.
Yes.
And there's photos of Kurt Schmoke and Spoon, in front of the mural, and there's a plaque that's being presented.
Yep.
So.
And I think there is a little placard on that mural still that says that it was remastered. Yeah, but it needs another remaster. And Spoon, where you at? Come back.
No, that's awesome. And you're right. Now that I think about it, I do see that some of those same threads in Gary's work. I didn't put that together until you just said that now, but that's true. And Tom's work, the longer, like you said about the embellishments, the longer you stand there and look at a piece, the more you notice about it. At first, you think it's a lot of like large shapes and, but then you start to see some of the little details. I think there was something you pointed out for some of the pieces in the exhibition about the colors of the Maryland flag.
Oh, yeah. That checkered pattern that you see on mostly a lot of his things. He puts that checkered pattern either around the border or somewhere, but it hints towards that Maryland flag and kind of grounds us as to where we are. If you don't know you're in Maryland, at least if you could, maybe he can help you. So I love how he references the flag and like different things about Maryland to let you all know like where some of these things are taking place.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. So after the exhibition, which closed in April, I believe, what's next?
What's next? So much is happening. One of my goals has always been, especially, like I said, that mural that I first saw when I was a kid. I was like maybe 7 or 12. I don't remember, but I was definitely young. When I was preserving those murals, that's one of my biggest goals was advocacy. That's one of the first things I wanted to do. But I was like, I need to build the community, get more people talking about Tom Miller before I can do that. So I've been working so hard over the last 5 years to do. And so that's one of my major goals next year in 2026 is to start advocating for those murals, working and contacting BOPA, contacting other advocates, contacting other muralists in the city to see how we can start trying to see if we can revive those murals over on North Avenue and Hartford Road. The However Far a Stream Flows Never Forgets its source is crumbling down. You can literally go up there and just pick a piece off at this point. But then also across the street, the one that you were talking about has been tagged.
Yeah.
And so just really, and also if you look close at the bottom too, that one's also kind of chipping away as well. So that's one of my biggest goals is to do advocacy. And then I do also have some work I'm also working with Visual AIDS over in New York. Visual AIDS is an organization that promotes but also supports artists who are living with HIV and AIDS virus. And they've heard about Tom Miller Week and they know about Tom Miller and they have a small blurb on their site. So I'm working to update their blurb, do a little writing for them, but also see if we can work towards do something for 2027 or 2026 with them up in New York because they're working on an exhibition, not about Tom Miller, but about a variety of artists who are living with HIV and AIDS at that time. I think it's specifically Artists of Color is the exhibition that they're having, and I think that's in 2027. But next year, 2026 is, I'm really focused on advocacy, but if we could have another exhibition, that'd be great as well.
Yeah, no, that would be wonderful. I'll definitely put some think on some spaces that could work for that.
For sure.
That would be seeing how well attended the opening and the closing receptions were for this year. I only can hope that it grows. Yeah,
I was blown away by the community support. Seriously, like everybody who's out there listening, like thank you, Baltimore. Thank you, United States. Like thank you, America, because there were people from all over the country who donated and who supported to help this exhibition come about. So I really, truly appreciate it, whether it's from the online auction or through, the online donations. Every dollar, every cent went to that celebration, and it goes towards that every year. I'm not making money off of this. I'm more so volunteering my time, and it's a passion of mine. That's not my goal. My goal is to honor and lift up Tom Miller's legacy, and I've seen so many other people now wanting to do and feature Tom Miller in their exhibitions, highlights on Instagram. There's so much happening more for Tom Miller, and I like to think it's because of Tom Miller Week, but I'm just glad that he's being acknowledged, and his legacy is coming about again. People need to know who he is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would hazard a pretty strong guess that your work has absolutely helped raise his profile and educate more people about him. I know, like I said, I know that's how I know everything that I know about him.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I definitely also want to give a shout out to his family too. One of the biggest things for me was talking about an artist, but not having, talking to his family. I thought that was weird, but as soon as I started this project, his nephew, David Miller, reached out to me, and we've been very close ever since then. And he's put me in touch with Tom Miller's mother, who's still alive. I think she's like 98, going on 99, as well as Tom Miller's sisters who are still living. Tom Miller's brother has passed away, but his family has been so supportive of the Tom Miller Week and the project and helping revive their brother's legacy and let people know that, hey, that's my brother. His work is still out there, and we're here, and we are supporting him, and we support Tom Miller Week. So huge thank you to his family as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so great to see a son of Baltimore get the recognition that he deserves.
Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How can folks who are listening support Tom Miller and your work?
Yeah, to support Tom Miller Week, all you got to do is log on to www.tommillerweek.org and donate. The donations are very helpful. Right now, we are still partnered with Black Art Today, so it is they're a nonprofit, so it is tax deductible. But those proceeds will go towards Tom Miller Week, towards any activities that we do, any contractors that we need, any other support. This year, we had support from Aleem Allison, who's a Morgan graduate. He was a curatorial assistant, so I went to supporting him. Any DJs, anything that we do, everything, and even some of the things to bring in the loans that we did for those artworks. But that's all they have to do is just log on and donate to tommillerweek.org. Another thing that'd be helpful is just contact me also. Email me at hello@blackives.org if you have some pieces of Tom's or some story of Tom's. I've been slowly adding and making this list of people who are his contacts, who are his fans, who have his work. So that way, when there's another exhibition or if someone gets in contact with me and wants to, have an exhibition in New York or something like that, I can say, hey, here are some people who have some work of Tom's, and your work can be displayed. It's not about me doing everything, if it's just about Tom's legacy getting out there. And it's starting in Baltimore, but it's growing. And I see it growing to New York and then from there around the world.
Yeah, that's so exciting. And definitely, like you said, the donations going to like the DJs and the other paying
everything.
Artists.
Yes, and paying the artists. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Well, I cannot wait to see what happens next year.
Me too.
If there's any large funders who are listening,
yes.
You can also, sponsor a program perhaps. I would love to see kids get to work on that stuff.
Me too.
Because getting to see just the option or getting to see the possibility of being a working artist and, having that support locally, not having to go to a, quote, art city, quote.
Yes.
And, but being able to be here in Baltimore and be a working artist.
Yeah.
That's so exciting.
That's the dream.
Yeah. No, I totally understand.
That's the dream.
So yeah, I can't wait to see what happens next. And
Me
I hope
too.
you get all the support that you deserve.
I appreciate it. You all at BOPA has been so supportive of Tom Miller Week from the beginning. You all have helped so much filling in some gaps, especially towards his public art. There are a lot of things about his public art I didn't know until, you reached out to me and let me know that you had these materials. So I'm very, very thankful to BOPA, especially for all the work that you all have done to help and support Tom Miller Week. Truly thankful.
Yeah, it has honestly been a pleasure. And I'm just so glad that I have that much more knowledge. Because like I said in the beginning, as I go around the city and I'm seeing things, it's like I'm seeing them for the first time. And having that context is really valuable. So.
Yeah, art is all around us, history is all around us, but it just takes one person or one thing, one event, like Tom Miller Week, to point it out to you, to really bring it to life. And then now you're like, okay, anytime anybody passes by, at least they can say, this is Tom Miller, and there's a celebration that happens every year for him. I'll just look it up and we can find out, and we can go and find out more about him.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Anytime somebody's in the car with me and we pass one of his murals, I'm like, did you know?
Yes. Me too. I'm like, okay, sit down. I got to talk to you. It's going to take me a little bit, but I got to tell you a story. But yeah, I love Tom Miller's work and truly wish he was here to see the fruits of his labor. I'm still being celebrated and enjoyed, but I know he's looking down. He's like, keep going. And let everybody know who I am.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for your work. And thank you so much for your time talking today.
Yes.
It's, as always, been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yay, definitely.
Thanks again to Deyane for being on the podcast, and a special shout out to Barbara for hosting. Remember, if you're a creative person with a story to share, reach out to me at srustin@promotioninarts.org to be featured on the podcast. And as always, when creatives thrive, we all rise.